Hi, this is Andrew Bridgewater, Chartered Psychologist at the mentalhealthcoach.net with episode 29 of the Mood and Food podcast. And I'm going to do something a little bit special and quite personal today that I hope you'll find really interesting because it's exactly 6 months since I stopped drinking alcohol. And I'm not seeking to be in any way virtuous about this. I would just want to give you a sense of my experience in that 6 months and the impact that that decision has made. But first of all, before I do, I want to talk about the reason I made the decision to stop drinking alcohol, which was just before Christmas in 2020. And obviously, dry January is something that people are aware of. And I thought, well, I'll do dry January, but I didn't actually feel any inclination to drink any alcohol between Christmas and New Year. And what happened at the end of dry January is that I was experiencing such a list of improvements and benefits. I actually decided to keep going. And here we are 6 months on, and I haven't had a drink in that time. And the catalyst to really making that decision initially was I was coaching somebody who has been an alcoholic all his life. He's dipped in and out of rehab. He's been suicidal. He's actually had a very serious accident and lost the use of he's lost his arm and shoulder, not just the use of it, he's lost it. It was amputated. And story and his experience struck me very deeply. And he's had a lot of mental health problems as well. So mental health exacerbated by a severe alcohol intake. And life was just so difficult. And I was very touched by his story. And also another coaching client who I worked with too was having severe anxiety, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning with real worry on so many levels, lots of different things. It wasn't just one thing. And actually, when I realized that Margaret's evening ritual was a very large gin and tonic, and I mean large, she's probably a quadruple measure every single day. That's a serious number of units of alcohol per week. I'll leave you to work it out. I suggested she might like to stop doing that and just have a soft drink instead, sparkling water or a tonic or something like that without the gin. And actually, the impact that that made on her mental health within about 2 weeks was remarkable. Because did you know that alcohol actually stays in your system for 14 days? If you have an alcoholic drink, however small, that alcohol is not dispelled by your bloodstream for 14 days. And actually, the effects of alcohol will be felt for many months, which is why I wanted to kind of give it a long run. And actually, I'm not going to go back because if the same stringent standards, health standards, were applied to alcoholic drinks as applied to food, did you realize that the recommended intake level would be no more than the equivalent of 1 glass of wine per year? Per year, I'm not talking per week. But because this substance, this attractively packaged poison, is so established in the social fabric, it raises a lot of money for government through taxation. And it's been passed from generation to generation, and we're just expected to do it. It's something that there's a lot of ignorance around, and that's kind of what I want to address. And you will have heard earlier podcasts where I was talking to Craig Beck, the stop drinking expert, about what happens when we drink. One of the biggest challenges is social pressure, handling the social pressure. And I had an interesting example of this the other night when I was out watching football. I was watching a Wales game. And there was a table between me and the screen, so I couldn't help see what was going on. 6 people at this table. One person made the decision to have a no alcohol beer because I saw it arrive. It was a 0 alcohol San Miguel, and everybody else was drinking pints of lager. And they probably had 4 or so pints during the game, and he had 2 or 3 of these San Miguels. And I watched the behaviour of the group change. And I saw the drinkers suddenly all seeming to be having a great time. But actually, behind it all, there wasn't a lot of happiness. It was very superficial. Now, the guy who was drinking the 0 alcohol was quite involved in the process. He was able to enjoy the evening, but he wasn't feeling the social pressure or dealing with it very well to drink, because this is one of the problems, isn't it? There seems to be such a lot of social proof around alcohol. If everybody else drinks, it must be okay. But I'm here to tell you it's all right to be different. And I think one of the things that this virus has taught us, amongst many other things, is that the mainstream narrative isn't necessarily that helpful. And the mainstream narrative around alcohol isn't all that helpful. As I say, particularly when you realise that if the same standards were applied as to food, 1 glass a year would be the recommended intake. But we get into this thing called plausible deniability. People say, oh, it's the one thing that I enjoy. It's the thing that helps me deal with my anxiety. It's the thing that helps me deal with my depression. Well, it doesn't. You're just kicking a much bigger can down the road with that. And I use that pun deliberately. I think most people know this, really. Most people realise that actually alcohol isn't the solution to their problems. It just seems to mask the problem in the moment. But I think many of us realise that actually masking our deeper problems is not the way out of them, and we actually need to deal with them properly. So I say people aren't funny when they're drunk. They're just more stupid. They just do more stupid things, and I think we've all done that. Me too. Earlier in life, I've actually done stupid things when I've been drinking alcohol. One of the other things I want to talk about is the red wine argument. Many people will be listening to this saying, well, of course, Andrew, red wine is good for you, isn't it? Well, interesting. I think that narrative has been peddled because it's much more attractive than the opposite. And did you realize it actually arose from an isolated piece on an American news channel, which the news anchor picked up on at the end? And he said, well, cheers to that. That's good news. And suddenly this piece went viral. The polyphenols in red wine might be good for you, but actually there are so many other things that aren't good for you in red wine. Alcohol is the product of decayed vegetable matter. That's why it tastes so bad. So we have to mask the taste. We have to add mixers. We have to do things. We have to work very hard to acquire the taste. Because after all, when you first drank alcohol, I'm sure, you probably didn't like the taste. I certainly didn't. It's a bit like that first cigarette, isn't it? When you first inhaled a cigarette, if you've ever done it, it's vile. Why would anybody want to do this for pleasure? But somehow people convince themselves that it is pleasurable. So again, it's interesting that smoking has become quite antisocial. The genie's out of the bottle with smoking. But actually, if you cast your mind back, doctors used to recommend people to smoke for throat problems. So things move on. And I think alcohol is lagging behind smoking by about 50 years. But I honestly think that we are going to come round to the notion that actually alcohol is an attractively packaged poison, which you wouldn't want to put a small amount of it in your body. After all, I've been noticing that in supermarkets, they're selling 70% alcohol as an antibacterial, antiviral cleanser. It kills everything it touches. So why would you even want to put a dilute small amount of that in? Now, I'm not trying to frighten you. I'm just trying to give you the facts, because what happens when you reprogram your unconscious is that the little challenges like the social pressure or what will people say when I tell them I'm not drinking at the moment will be able to be handled. But I urge you to try it. Because if you stop drinking for several months, you will notice a clarity of mind, you'll notice better sleeping, you'll experience less stress, you'll lose weight if you've got it to lose, your skin will be clearer. Because let's face it, you're not putting toxicity into your body, you're not putting stuff into your body that was never meant to be there, which is why we don't let young children drink alcohol. And one of the challenges that the chap I alluded to earlier, who'd lost his arm and shoulder in an accident, he was forced to drink alcohol at the age of 5 because his father thought it would be funny. And his father clearly had a lot of alcohol problems. But this stuff is really worth reflecting on. And I just wanted to give you some context for it. So I've given you some of the challenges. What can you do instead? Well, my favourite drink of choice at the moment, particularly in the summer, is an orange juice and soda water. It's a refreshing long drink. You can get the soda water in a can or a bottle separately, and you just keep topping it up and keep sipping away. It's lovely to watch the football with. A no alcohol beer is also a good alternative. These beers are so much better than they were before. As I say, the chap the other night was drinking 0% San Miguel. 0 Heineken is good. The early ones were pretty poor. They tasted like liquid cardboard, but things have come on a lot since then. So just consider trying it. Give yourself the alternative. Give it a month. See how you feel. and then decide in your mind and body whether it's something you want to continue with. Don't take my word for it. But my experience is after 6 months off, I shan't be going back. I'm really enjoying the benefits of being free of alcohol. And I was never a particularly big drinker, but even just cutting out a small amount has made such a difference to my mental clarity, my well-being, and those other aspects that I mentioned earlier. So that's my 6 months off alcohol very briefly. If you've got any questions, please do email me, andrew@andrewbridgewater.com, and I'll be delighted to answer them. And please do listen to the episode with Craig Beck, where we talk about the link between alcohol, anxiety, and depression and severe stress. So I look forward to speaking to you again soon. This is Andrew Bridgewater at thementalhealthcoach.net. Bye-bye.